Okay, guys, thanks everybody for coming. My name is Jason Fox. I'm chair of the graphic design department at SCAD, and I just want to kind of set this up for you so you have a sense of how it fits into well, graphic design, first of all, right? Tiffany Shlain, and then kind of where we're going with this. So this is part of our HOWDesignLive conference integration with the graphic design department at SCAD as a university. And this is our third installment, our third conversation. We're doing conversations with visionaries and entrepreneurs in creative fields. Our first one was with Matthew Manos. Our second one was with Jason Fried, who is founder of Basecamp. Today's is Tiffany Shlain, as you've all noticed. Next, in 2 weeks, and they're every 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, it'll be Lana Rigsby from Houston, Texas, one of the top 50 emerging design firms of the last century. And then we'll wrap it all up at the end of the quarter, 2 weeks after that, March 10th, with Kate Aronowitz, 1997 SCAD graphic design alumnus, and former world creative director of Facebook, design director for eBay, design director for LinkedIn, and now at Wealthfront, as a C-level leader at Wealthfront, which is a Bay Area organization. So we're excited about this, and all this leads up to the HOWDesignLive conference hosted in Atlanta, May 19th through the 23rd.
That's
Finally
right.
get those dates right. May 19th through the 23rd, and of course, will be a big part of that as well. So the speakers in this series are either have been former speakers at HOW or will be speakers at this year's HOW conference. We're offering, there'll be wonderful discounts to SCAD students to participate in that conference since it is so close and so near to us in Atlanta. So look out for information on that. And with that, I'm going to introduce Miss Ilise Benun, who is the program director for the HOWDesignLive Creative Entrepreneurship track at the HOW conference. Ilise?
Thank you, Jason, and thank you for bringing me to Savannah for this and organizing this event. We have a beautiful room full of students, so thank you so much for coming. We're at the Turner Theater at the SCAD Museum of Art, this gorgeous building. And I'm really happy to be here. As Jason said, I'm the programming partner for the Creative Entrepreneur track for HOWDesignLive. And we are basically bringing design entrepreneurs and visionaries who have built on their design foundation and are using their creativity to do something meaningful. That's the mission of this program, this lecture series. And it will be posted in the virtual lecture hall almost as soon as it's done. So you can watch it there again. The big idea here behind this series is that with a design foundation, with a creative foundation, the opportunities and options are limitless. And I'm trying to bring people who have done really interesting and innovative things with their creativity to talk with you live. So Tiffany Shlain, I'll tell you a little bit about her. She's on a very tight schedule, so we're going to only have her for 20 minutes, so we're going to make the most of that time, and we're going to screen 2 of her short films and then talk with her in between. So be watching and getting ready with some questions, because we will have an opportunity to ask her some questions. And let me first then tell you a little bit about her. The work of filmmaker, author, artist, internet leader, and Renaissance woman Tiffany Shlain catalyzes deep thought about the future and how we want to live it. Her short and feature-length films have received countless awards and distinctions, including a Disruptive Innovation Award from the Tribeca Film Festival, and multiple premieres at Sundance. She just came back from Sundance, actually, and a global showcasing by the US State Department. She has a film series on AOL called The Future Starts Here, and it has amassed 20 million views. Maybe some of you have seen it. She's also a original founder of the Webby Awards and a co-founder of the International Academy of Digital Arts and Sciences. And Tiffany's subjects are very interesting. They range from science and technology to creativity, culture, and motherhood. And I'm going to talk to her about this. She says, though a lover of the internet, she and her family have been taking a weekly technology Shabbat for the last 5 years. I think maybe even a little bit longer. So we're going to ask her about that. So are we ready to screen the first one, which is the adaptable mind?
of a 21st century mind in action.
I heard about a 25-year-old woman inventing large chargers.
A scientist who was born in Ethiopia now he's using satellites to predict drought.
I really like that story about the car mechanic who developed the way of sleeping.
Our question prompted all these responses about amazing technological breakthroughs and innovations. And then we heard one story that opened a door to a new way of thinking. It's about an art professor in Los Angeles named Mary Beth, who was watching the news around the Ebola crisis in West Africa and thought, wait a second, these patients must be so scared and lonely, and the only humans they're seeing are covered in these huge imposing suits.
In every report that I heard on the Ebola epidemic, they mentioned the frightening suits.
I imagined, what would it be like to be a patient to not see a person's face for days on end? I found myself almost saying out loud, why don't they put photos on the outside? Why don't they just put photos on?
And finally, I thought, maybe I'm the one who's meant to do that.
And we were so moved because the way Mary Beth's story unfolds shines a light on a larger shift we're seeing in the world. As technologies are rapidly changing how we do everything, certain skills are becoming less valuable, the need to memorize, perform routine tasks, and soon even the need to drive, while others are becoming more valuable. So what exactly are the skills that prepare us for a world that's constantly changing? Of course, there's a lot of conversation around this question. What should we be focusing on in school and in life? There's the importance of science, technology, engineering, and math. I like to throw in art and humanities. So not STEM, not STEAM, but STEAM. And there's also amazing new evidence-based research proving that there's another set of skills we need that aren't in textbooks, yet. So as we learned more about Mary Beth's story and delved deep into how it connected to all the different schools of thought, the hard skills, the soft skills, the life skills, the cognitive, the non-cognitive, we found 5 skills, strengths, qualities, whatever you want to call them, and yes, it's another list, that seem to be at the core of thriving in today's world. So if you want to know what they are, or how Mary Beth's story relates to any of them, you're already practicing the first one, curiosity.
The news kept puncturing my consciousness. I started reading more extensively about West African culture, about filoviruses. I mentally just started problem solving.
In our 24/7 world where we're inundated with information from all directions, 3 billion Google searches a day, 300,000 tweets every minute, curiosity is the difference between skimming the surface of all those links and truly engaging. And not just looking for what's already out there, but also for ideas that aren't already out there. New research from UC Davis shows that when our curiosity is piqued, the brain activates regions associated with learning, memory, and even reward. It basically turns our minds into very happy sponges. And while there's a lot of fear out there that technologies are replacing what we do, our curiosity is one of the things that makes humans unique from machines, but not from animals. Machines follow rules very well, follow a designated pathway. But our minds are built to constantly adapt, to ask questions that create unexpected pathways, pathways that lead to even more curiosity. And those questions you ask and pathways you open also lead to creativity, our second skill.
And my immediate response was to look around me, take what was available, and repurpose it for that use.
We often think about creativity as part of art, but it's important in absolutely every context. Taking different research and finding connections, a new synthesis, a new idea. Harvard psychologist Howard Gardner says creativity is liberating human energy. And in today's world, creativity is so key because you have so much information at your fingertips that getting that information is not the biggest challenge. In fact, more and more, the world is going to expect that you're curious enough to do that. It's how you bring your own unique perspective to connect ideas in new ways that's going to differentiate you. Research now shows that some of your most creative thoughts happen when your mind is left to wander, when you daydream, exercise, even when you're doing the dishes. But no matter how many creative ideas you have, You have to do something with them. Which brings us to the third skill we need in today's world, taking initiative.
I wrote scores of letters to anybody that I could think of. Many responded positively. In fact, most responded positively. But getting someone to commit to partner was the most difficult part.
If you don't take initiative, your ideas will float into a sea of billions of thoughts being generated around you every day. And in order to begin and get something done, we use an incredible amount of things like intuition, judgment, discerning which ideas to act on, knowing when to shift directions or approach. Taking initiative also means knowing when to reach out to people. What would an artist think about your idea? What about a scientist? What about somebody from another country? Which is really about multidisciplinary thinking.
I reached out to epidemiologists, doctors, public health, NGOs, even anthropologists, asking, what do you think of this idea? How could I improve it?
There's so much talk today about how we're distracted by multitasking, but what we really need to be doing more of is multi-asking. Across ages, races, genders, cultures, and disciplines. We think of the mind as private, and there's so much value in solo thinking. But there are also so many ways that the mind is public, this communal organ to communicate, to transfer ideas, and to collaborate. And collaborating, just like everything else about being human, can be messy. It takes understanding what you know and what you don't know. So the next time that you're collaborating, how can you make sure that your mind is really open to being changed? It really comes down to empathy.
I imagine what it would be like to be a patient, to be taken away from your family, taken away by somebody wearing this frightening suit. And then there's the view from the healthcare worker's side. You have your human tool to have patients accept your care, gone.
MIT researcher Rebecca Sachs suggests that this skill of sensing the motives and feelings of others really begins developing around the age of 5 and has the potential to grow stronger throughout life. But just like the rest of these skills, empathy takes practice. Looking people in the eye, truly trying to understand where they're coming from, taking the time to know the names and stories of people you interact with daily. And it seems as our world has become more and more connected, we have to remember that connecting broadly is meaningless unless we connect deeply. In fact, a 3 decades-long study of college students has found that empathy levels in our culture have dropped dramatically. It's clearly time to refocus. Empathy is at the core of our ability to communicate, to work together, to be part of our rapidly changing world, which is where you come in. For most of human history, we survived by creating an agricultural economy. 200 years ago, we shifted to an industrial economy. Just 50 years ago, we initiated the knowledge economy. And today, we're approaching another seismic shift. Some people are calling the human economy. So here we talk to scientists, friends, researchers, Mary Beth, and here's the part that we found most fascinating and hopeful. The skills we need most in today's world in any profession boil down to being human. Basically, the qualities that machines don't have. Eventually, through hundreds of connections, obstacles, and breakthroughs, Mary Beth was introduced to a doctor in Liberia who landed her an official invitation to begin work in their Ebola clinics.
I love patients so much. You see, I love the food too.
These skills have been the engine of innovation and survival since the beginning of civilization. But we've arrived at a time when your human skills are just as important as your knowledge. So what can you offer? Who's ready?
You open up when you had me in your hands, slipping far away with the world at your command.
Thank you. Hello, Tiffany. There she is. Can you hear me, Tiffany?
Yes, hello.
Hello, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Of course. Happy to be here.
And we just screened The Adaptable Mind, which I had watched several times, but I feel so moved. It's so interesting. There's something so moving about it, so thank you.
That makes me happy.
Absolutely. And okay, so I have a bunch of questions, and I usually start with your foundation and your education and all of that, but I actually want to get right to the heart of the matter since we don't have a lot of time, which is, what are you trying to do with your films? Talk to us about your mission.
We at my film studio have a great team. You're gonna see some of them. I'm gonna give you a little. I don't do this alone. But we want to make provocative, meaningful, inspiring, powerful films, discussion materials, and events using the latest technology to do it in new ways to really have people think about the important things that shape them in our world. And so we're a film studio, but we also do this big event, Character Day. And we're always just trying to push the boundary of how to make people feel moved enough to stop their busy lives and think and evolve themselves, work on themselves, be mindful about how the way they're moving in the world and the decisions they're making and the way they're voting and everything like that. But one thing I wanted to say, that you said the film really moved you, and I've been thinking a lot about the word movie, that the word movie is like about moving you. You don't normally hear it that way, but it's like, I'm happy to move you. That's really what we're trying to do. We're trying to kind of move things forward.
Interesting. And actually then the next question that comes to my mind is, why film? Why movies? Because one of the times I watched it, I was actually just listening to it and I was having a different experience. And so you make, I don't know, how many films have you made? 28, something like that?
Yeah.
So why movies?
I think movies for me, okay, there's a couple reasons. I used to run the Webby Awards, which was a big event, annual event, and I would pour so much creative energy into honoring the web and people, pioneers in new and innovative ways. And if you were not at that event, you never saw, you could never kind of try to sometimes we'd have 3,000 person events, I'd have amazing performers and people rappelling from the ceiling and movies, but if you weren't there, you weren't there. You couldn't experience it. Now, when I was making the Webbies, I made a film called Life, Liberty, and the Pursuit of Happiness. And
people have seen it.
Thank you. And that film got into Sundance, which was very exciting. That was my first film at Sundance. And it played at Sundance, and then it played at every Planned Parenthood event on the 30-year anniversary of Roe v. Wade. And I was just starting to think about having children. My husband and I were, and I was really thinking about the thing that many women question is, how can I make an impact in the world and also be a present mother? And I was really wrestling with that. And when I saw how that short film with discussion materials in the web, robust web materials around it, could live without me. So to this day, that film came out 13 years ago. That film still plays at places and it doesn't need me. And I love that. And I as I've gotten older, I'm interested in scaling my creativity. So now I have like 28 films that just are all playing at different parts of the world. I mean, I get my reports from my distributors and my films are just like doing their thing without me. That's so exciting. And so all that creative energy that I put into the film is still there and it will always be there. The fact that it moved you when we made it last year is super exciting to me. So to me, it feels like a really efficient use of my creativity, because doing this live event, which was an amazing experience, we're having our 20-year anniversary this year, and I don't run it anymore, but I still care about it. I really could not have continued doing that and be the kind of mother that I am, which is super important to me.
Okay, so that's a connection then to the technology Shabbat, because I mentioned it when I introduced you, and you also talked about it in, I think it was the making of a Mensch, which I was watching also, and this whole issue of the importance of our attention and how we decide what we let in and how we use our attention. So would you share what this technology Shabbat is with our students?
Yeah, my family and I should tell you, I love technology, obviously, and my husband is a professor of robotics. We're very steeped into always the latest technology and talking about it a lot. But we were also feeling like we're just getting really distracted. Like I'm sure everyone feels, you're talking to someone, you're not really talking to them, you're not totally paying attention. And my father was dying, and I really thought a lot about time and attention, and what we only have a short time on this earth, and you better use it wisely. So my family and I, we have 2 kids, started turning off all screens from Friday night to Saturday night. And it doesn't always go to like the sun drops, but till Saturday early evening. And we're Jewish, we're not religious, but we do celebrate, we celebrate Shabbat. We have a beautiful dinner every Friday night. So every Friday night, all those screens go off, and we have friends over, and we have a lovely meal. And then Saturday is like we sleep the best on Friday nights. Saturdays, we do art projects, we play board games, we're in the garden, we're bike riding, and there's no phone, there's no television, there's no iPad. People are always amazed, like, you don't use your phone? I'm like, no, we don't use our phone. And we're on our 7th year, and it's the best thing I've ever done in my life for my creativity also, not just for my sanity. So that's been really important. I feel so creative after those periods. I can't even tell you. I just feel like I'm completely replenishing my creativity, because I made another film. I don't know if you saw it, but it'd be great to show to your students, called A Case for Dreaming. Did you see that? And it's in my show, The Future Starts Here. Did you see any of that? So, and it explores the neuroscience behind what happens to your mind when you're daydreaming. And when you're daydreaming, you're often making unusual connections between ideas and thoughts, and that's where creativity comes from. So when we're without screens for a whole day and nothing to like distract us or stuff our face with information, we're linking unusual ideas. That's the only way I can describe it, because Sunday morning, I have so many new ideas, and that really, I can track that back to when I started doing these tech Shabbats. And my productivity, the amount of films I was able to make because I take this time off has really increased.
Beautiful. All right, so let's talk a little bit about your foundation, because I think you studied film theory at UC Berkeley, and you have done other education, but tell us what you thought you were going to do with that.
Yeah, well, I was supposed to be a doctor. I'm sure that people in the audience whose parents were like, you were going to be a doctor. And I studied a lot of sciences, and I loved Berkeley. It just had so many great teachers in all these different departments. But then I took an elective in film history, and there was just this amazing teacher who really had this infectious excitement about how changes in technology with filmmaking changed the way we recorded reality, and then changed reality and changed culture. And I thought that was a great way to move ideas. So I was at Berkeley, and I was an interdisciplinary studies major. They didn't have production there, so I went to NYU in the summer program called Sight and Sound, which is amazing, but very steeped in my theory and history. And all of the people who might be listening want to be a filmmaker. I think that's really important, to know the masters and really know the reference points of all these great filmmakers before us. And so I did really well in college with my films, and I thought, I'm going to make my first feature film right out of UC Berkeley, and I kept running out of money, and I just felt like such a loser. I borrowed money from family and friends and lots of volunteers on this film called Zoli's Brain, which is still unfinished in my garage. I kept running out of money, and the way I'd get out of debt is I'd work in technology. And I kept going back and forth in that. And then one of the jobs I had was working on a CD-ROM, which was, your students will know what early web. It was not web. And I was working on a CD-ROM on the musician Sting when he was like the coolest thing around at that time. and somebody said to me, you have to see this thing called a website. And I was like, and I thought, oh my God, this is going to change the world. People all over the world were talking about how much they love Sting's music on a website. And shortly thereafter, I came back to San Francisco and I founded the Webby Awards. And I was working for the Web magazine, which was a almost too early for its time magazine chronicling the web, and started the Webbies. And that just was this amazing career trajectory. And I ran this, it got so big. And I was always making short films for the Webbies. And so from the first 10 years of my career, I was creating the Webby Awards and running it, but I knew I wanted to get back to filmmaking. And then that film, Life, Liberty, and the Pursuit of Happiness, was this little side project I was doing while I was doing the Webbies. And then that moment of like, wow, I can really scale what I do. And now everything with that I've learned with the web, combined with the power of film to make ripples and change in the world, was very enticing to me.
Excellent. And one of your websites is called letitripple.org. I want to put that out there so people can take a look.
Yeah, that is our that's our nonprofit. It does Character Day. I hope your class will participate in Character Day this year. It's going to be September 22nd. You can go to characterday.org and sign up. And it's a global day where we have films and discussion materials and a Google Hangout that unifies everything. It's a really fun day.
Excellent. All right, I want to ask you one more question, and then we can open it up to the students. I know we have a lot of the film students here also, so and then we'll just ask as many questions as we can, and then we'll let you go when you need to go. So,
okay, perfect.
My last question, because I noticed that your films are very unusual. I'm not a film teacher or student or anything, so
yeah, they have their own style. Yes.
Right, and they're very collage-y is, I think, the word that I've heard you use. So just talk to us about why they are the way they are. What does that mean?
So you know how they say necessity breeds creativity? Like there was no film production at UC Berkeley, and I wanted to make movies. So the way I made movies was cut together old movies as I had to. And then as more images have come on the web, I'm like a kid in a candy store, because I used to have to go find old film reels and cut them together. And now everything's available to me. I mean, we make a lot of original animations for all of our movies. We shoot a little, but for me, I love recontextualizing images to help you think of a new idea. Like that to me is just, why shoot all this stuff? There's so much stuff out there, and if I combine it in new ways, it creates all these new ideas. So it's like fireworks of ideas. So, but my show, that said, I mean, I think your students and you, if you watch The Future Starts Here, we did more shooting than I've done in a long time on that show. But I love the collage, but it came out of necessity at first, and then it became my style, and I just love it. I love the freedom of finding things. It's like, I love going to flea markets. It's the same thing. Like, ooh, what am I going to find in history? And then I use a lot of stuff that, you know, if I need a shot, an overhead shot of the Golden Gate Bridge, there's like 40 shots of that. It would cost me like $50,000 to shoot that. And in reality, there's like 40 versions I can buy for $300. So like, it's a time energy thing. Like I can use one that's already shot.
Beautiful. All right, do we have questions? Can we raise the lights a little bit? There's a question back there. We have about 5 minutes. 5 minutes good for you, Tiffany?
So when you were starting out, and you had to balance the cost of living with making these films that you wanted to do right out of college, as you said, how did you find the way, or what got you past the struggle of having food on the table and also doing this creative thing that you loved?
Well, what I do tell a lot of people, I really recommend doing internships. I was an intern at a film studio. I had another job. I had a lot of jobs when I was a waitress, I was a professor's assistant, but I found time to be an intern for free. Like, we actually don't do free internships anymore. We only do them if students can get credit, because for legal purposes, but I'm a big proponent of learn from the masters and be around other filmmakers. And I'm sure there are filmmakers that you can do this with for credit. But I would do kind of not shit jobs, but you know, I was a waitress for a long time, which I think everyone should have to do in their life. And I interning, and so I just like kept it separate when I was starting out. And then hopefully the goal is that you're making a living doing what you love. That's what everyone should be doing in their life. But to get there, you might have to do this combination for a while. And but I would say intern with filmmakers. A lot of time we hire a lot of people that started as interns. I mean, you know, if someone's good, you're gonna want to hire them.
Yeah. Great. So work real hard is one thing I hear you saying. All right, we have another question. Michael.
Hi, Tiffany. It's Michael Cheney. I'm sorry about blowing up your Twitter feed today.
I didn't even see it. I'm on Twitter. You guys I'm at Tiffany Shlain, and I'm on Twitter all the time.
We're a big fan of your work. We've been screening your films as part of the Black Mariah and also in our classrooms for 10 years. How has your collaborative process changed since Life, Liberty, and the Pursuit of Happiness into the kind of style that you're working with now? And do you have any words of advice for our students on working collaboratively?
Yeah, well, I have a team. I mean, Sawyer, who's my producer and co-writer, we've worked together for 10 years. And my sound designer I've worked with for 25 years. And my animators, I mean, here's the thing. I feel like there's great value in working with people for a long time. And I'm always excited to work with new people, to bring some new creative juice into the mix. But my style, I love all these tools. Like we write scripts, we're all on one Google Doc and we're all adding to it. And, we're just making a whole editing studio on the cloud so that we can be editing from different locations. I think my style is I'm working with a lot more animators. I love animation and I love working with brilliant animators. I mean, most people will say, they see all my films, there's a specific style to all of them, but I work with a lot of different animators. But collaborating, it's good to collaborate, but it's also good to be by yourself. And I really saw that in the last year. I tried to get up really early and have time to think and not, my film studio is a lot of people. Wait, Sawyer wants to add something? Wait, Sawyer's adding something. This is Sawyer I was just saying.
Tiffany often calls saying, I had a dream, I had this vision, or I was just in Soul Cycle, and I figured out the whole...
Yeah, but I usually I would call Sawyer, with an insight or an idea for film that comes after I've either been exercising or sleeping. Okay, as I've gotten older, I know you guys are all young and you think it's cool to stay up late and not sleep a lot. But as you realized, I look at creativity like an athlete. There was one time we were working on 14 films at once, or 12 films at once. We were working on our show, The Future Starts Here. And I'm always thinking about how do I maximize the creativity? Sleep becomes infinitely more important, and respecting how important sleep is for creativity.
That's amazing. No, because actually in our last interview, the interviewee, Jason Fried of Basecamp, did a rant about how important sleep is.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, I think you just realize, when I was younger, I worked all the time. I mean, doing the Webbies, and I was, people always say, like, how do you do all that? I'm like, I was working until, and I didn't sleep as much. And I slept like maybe 5 hours a night. And now, like, I want 8. I'm a better version of myself at 8. And especially after having kids, like, sleep becomes this golden chalice of, but I also just think I am more creative when I sleep. And I try my creative when I feel really creative. I mean, there's always that giddy, in the editing room when we haven't slept and we come up with some great edits because we're all sleep deprived at the end of a film. I love that too, but that's not sustainable. But that's like every film. Okay, after doing this, I'm 45, made a lot of films. No matter how much planning, it always at the end, even if you think, oh, we're not going to have those crazy hours at the end because we're so smart, we've done this so many times, it always happens. And actually, I think that the creativity comes out in those times when you have that big deadline and you're working around the clock. Mm-hmm. I mean, I love those times because they're very creative.
Excellent. All right, and I know you talked about that in the creative process, which we're going to screen momentarily, but we have one more question before we let you go, all right?
Oh, my name is Professor Amy Lerner-Maddox, And I wanted to thank you for the film because I had to make an important creative decision the last couple of days, and your short film supported that decision. So I want to thank you. I know that comes out of the blue, but I wanted to ask you, who did you study with when you took Sight and Sound? Because I'm
Arnie Baskin.
Oh my God.
I love him. I still go visit him when I'm in New York.
Oh, good. Mention my name. Arnie is my mentor, so I saw Arnie's influence in your film, and
I thank him in all my credits. Him and Marilyn, my two first teachers, my film history teacher I told you about, Marilyn Fabe, and Arnie Baskin are in every film credit.
I saw his influence in your film, and that's what I wanted to find out. Thank you so much. I love Arnie. I still stay in contact with him. And Tia Lemke, yeah, thank you.
You know, actually, I tell all the students, like, stay in touch with your teachers, the ones that really lit a fire under you. Like, they want to, like, that's what they're doing it for. And I'm a big believer to always remember who helped you out or inspired you early on. And here's my last piece of advice to all the students. Write handwritten thank you notes. An email thank you is not enough. And it'll really set you apart. And whenever I get one, I'm always like, huh. And I teach my kids it, and we have a stack of thank you notes here. I'm very into the art of writing and thanking people and being grateful and letting people know how grateful you are, always.
All right, well, you may just get 100 thank you notes in a week.
That wasn't fishing. That wasn't that totally wasn't fishing. I hope that
I know, but it's a good idea. All right, thank you, Tiffany, so much for your time this morning.
Okay, have a great day. Bye.
All right, bye. All right, let's watch the creative process.
So when I was 21, I set out to make my first feature film, Zoli's Brain, and I enlisted all this money from family and friends, and I asked hundreds of people to help me with the shoot, and I spent 4 years of my life on it, and then I totally failed. I'm Tiffany Shlain. I'm a mother, filmmaker. I founded the Webby Awards. And this series is about how the future doesn't start somewhere far off in the distance. The future starts here. It took me another 12 years before I built up the courage to want to tackle another feature film. And I did a lot of smaller projects that built along the way to like build my courage. Because, you know, courage is like a muscle. Like, you need to constantly strengthen it to get to the bigger projects. So along the way, I found my voice, which was great. Started narrating my own films instead of having a man speak my thoughts. With that first feature film, I gave up at the scary stage. And now that I've learned how to embrace all the stages, the creative process has become a lot more enjoyable to me. And I want to share them with you so that maybe it can help you too. Stage 1, the hunch. Any project starts with a hunch, and you have to act on it. It's a total risk because you're just about to jump off a cliff, and you have to go for it if you believe in it. And you have to gather the team around you that you want to jump off with you. Stage 2, talk about it. This brings me to my new project, which is this feature Connected. Tell your family, tell your friends, tell your community. I mean, they're the ones who are going to support you on the whole treacherous journey on this creative process. So involve them, engage them. Unless, of course, you're an introvert, then don't tell anyone. Shh. Stage 3, and I love this stage. It's the sponge. I'm going to tons of art shows. I'm watching a lot of movies. I'm reading voraciously. I'm asking questions on Facebook and Twitter and going on Pinterest, and I'm just sponging up ideas and trying to formulate my own idea about the subject. Stage 4 is build. I love the word filmmaker because it has maker in it. My team and I are building, we're constructing, we're writing, we're reading, we're collaborating. We're building an armature, the architecture for the project. Stage 5, here's the scary part. Confusion, dread, heart of darkness, forest of fire, doubt, fear. Every project has this stage for me. But the good thing is, as hard as it is, and it is really hard, is that any project, film, art installation, writing, it always gets infinitely better after I've rumbled with all of my fears. Stage 6, take a breather. Literally step away from the project. And now build this into the schedule. Just step away, let it marinate. Don't look at it or think about it. I know that I've completely lost perspective.
But let me just ask you, how long have we been working on the edit?
Since last
We have
August.
no light on you.
Yeah, it was August 1st, maybe.
So, about a year, almost a year.
And what minute are we at?
We're at minute 12.
Stage 7, the love sandwich. This is the first thing I teach anyone who joins my team. Basically, to give constructive feedback, always snuggle it in love. Because we're only human and we're vulnerable. So when I ask for feedback, which I do a lot on my projects, I try to first set expectations on where you are in the project.
And the ending of the film, particularly, is very, very, very rough. In fact, it's so rough.
Then ask for questions in a way that allows for the love sandwich. First, what works for you? Then, what doesn't work for you? Then, what works for you again? If you just ask people for feedback, they'll go straight for the jugular. So the love sandwich, pack it up and bring it with you. Stage 8, the premature breakthrough elation. You will find in a project that you will have many false breakthroughs. And you have to celebrate these little breakthroughs because they're ultimately gonna lead to the big breakthrough, which will happen.
We're having another breakthrough. Well, you have to admit there's been a lot of breakthroughs on this film.
I think we're down to 0 minutes. We're down to 0 minutes on the film now.
We're on negative minutes.
We're on negative minutes, but we're feeling good. I don't know why. Stage 9, revisit your notes. I always do this throughout the project, but especially during that last home stretch. Those late nights, that extra mile, usually near a deadline. And then I revisit all my notes and feedback, and I always find the clue. That missing link that brings it all home. Look at this last picture! 3.5 years! Oh, you're in the house! Stage 10. I love this part. I've worked for this part. We all deserve this part. Know when you're done. You can really apply these stages to anything in the world. I mean, progress itself. Sometimes it feels like we're going 2 steps forward, 1 step back, but we eventually are moving forward. So it's good to kind of understand that it's all a process and it's gonna take you to a new place. And I try to remind myself all the time to enjoy the process. So what is the potential when everyone, including my 10-year-old daughter, has the tools to make and distribute things for the world? I mean, we are in the middle of the biggest explosion and proliferation of voices and creativity that humanity has ever seen.
Beautiful. All right, so let's bring up the lights. We have about 10 minutes to talk about what just happened. And I have no agenda, but I do have a question. So where are the mics? For the people who have answers, right? There are no answers, but just responses. What did you just learn in the last 45 minutes? What did you learn that you can take out of here with you and apply to whatever you happen to be working on right now? Anybody? We have shy people in the room. Thank you. Say your name, please.
I'm Jenny Scarda. I'm doing the graphic design master's program right now,
great.
and just I think that whole 10-step process, every step resonated with me, and I'm almost laughing because I'm like, yes, to each one, and so that was really helpful and reassuring. I think that each step, I don't think it's a misstep. I think sometimes failing or just reconsidering yourself, it's part of a healthy process to get to something brilliant. And also her sleep thing. It's funny how many of these people that we get to see through these interviews, they're telling us to sleep, and I'm like, Okay, I will.
I did not prep them for that. Excellent. Who else?
One of the things I really enjoyed about what she had to say is she had stated that films are an efficient use of her creativity. I think that's just such an important aspect to bring up, because oftentimes we can get swept up in wanting to be able to accomplish everything. We want to be this unicorn designer or filmmaker, whatever it is, to where that you can do anything. I mean, as students, as we are now, I don't think it's important to like have it all figured out, but keep in mind that like you have to be efficient with your creativity, like what's sustainable, and being the ultimate unicorn designer like isn't sustainable. And I just really loved her, just her statement of saying that it's an efficient use of her creativity, and really making sure she can maximize her potential by focusing on a certain film like field and style. That was honestly probably just one of my favorite parts of her talk.
Beautiful. And she talked about the scalability of it also. I noticed that you know, you can work in such a way that it's for you and your little circle or for everyone, and that seems to be the choice she made. Who else? Do we have another comment? Learning. Right here.
I don't know if this is necessarily a learning comment, but something that I appreciated as a professor here. And with so many of our students today, the internet is such a powerful place, and there are so many resources. And I think one of the things that she said that was really important, and that you guys should all take to heart, is that she doesn't necessarily look to the internet and taking images as inspiration or to borrow their ideas, but she's looking at the internet and available resources and technology as resources. You know, how she's appropriating, you know, I'm not going to spend $50,000 to take another shot over the Golden Gate Bridge, but, you know, so I think that, that a lot of times with students, particularly in graphic design, I don't see students kind of really exploiting those resources. I see them taking advantage of the easy inspiration of some of those things. So I think that what she had to say there was really important, and so think about that the next time you're caught in Google land, which can be dangerous, but doesn't have to be.
Excellent. In the back there. Michael, I'm going to call on you soon, so be ready.
I really liked how she said that middle part. I think it was step 5, the darkness and because one of the hardest things for me whenever I start any project, writing something, creating something that by hand, the hardest part for me is because I have so many ideas and I love thinking. Thinking's my favorite pastime. Who doesn't like to think? It's just like, ooh, I did that. Anyways, digressing. The hardest thing for me is starting. It's because I'm so afraid of all the failings that could come from it and all the downsides. So the fact that she said that everyone faces that is almost a comfort.
It's a huge comfort. My favorite step in that process is the going back to your notes at the end, because I, in my process, take so many notes, but then I'm so busy doing everything else that I forget about them, and I worry that what I had originally thought of, what the original inspiration was, isn't going to get into the final product. So I love that, like, go back to your notes and make sure that you don't lose any of those threads. Excellent. Who else? Give the mic to Michael. I would love to hear what he has to say, please. I'm curious, anything you want to say, but also you asked her a question.
I was just twittering her.
I figured.
I got busted. No, I think it's really exciting. Film, in particular, is an extremely collaborative medium, or media, because it's sound, it's animation, it's live action, it's photography, it's performance, it's design. And I really enjoyed looking at those kind of, the creativity in 10 acts. How do you do that collaboratively? That's a challenge, and it's also incredibly rewarding. So I'm going to share these videos with all of my classes, kind of make it mandatory viewing from now on. I hope my intro students are paying attention. Cool, right on. Is it like opening doors for your new assignment? I see a lot of smiles, that's awesome.
Excellent, thank you. Anyone else? There's one right here in the middle, actually. Raise your hand so Jason can see you. And then we'll go back to you, yes. Give it back, yes, pass it over, thank you.
I just thought it was nice to hear her take on letting things happen organically and just being good to yourself, because when you're in the middle of the creative process, it's so easy to have your nose to the grindstone and be focused, and then thinking you're going to come up with a creative solution, and then that doesn't happen. So you have to step away and get some sleep and, you know, go for a walk and something. And it's nice to hear her as a professional saying that things that we all as students have problems with.
Still, yeah. And what did you think about the technology Shabbat? I mean, can you go off screen for 24 hours?
Oh, I'm doing that.
Yeah?
Whole family.
Excellent. All right. What about you? Can you go off screen for 24 hours?
Oh, I would love to.
Excellent. All right. We had another question, yes, or comment over there. Pass that back. This side of the room is very vocal. We need something on this side.
Oh, this side is vocal. It just reminds me that the world is very small. To sit here and to study with the same person she studied with, and that we are still friends with the same person, I have to say, we think the world is that large, but it's very small. And I never thought I would be sitting here today. I just received a flyer the other day, decided to come here. Here she is, I spoke to her, and voila.
Connecting. Beautiful, thank you.
Voila.
Anyone on this side? This is the introvert side. Okay, right there in the middle again. Oh, okay, in the back and then in the middle.
All right, so I thought it was really cool because to see where she is now and all the accomplishments that she's like achieved, she still kind of reflected on it wasn't always this way. Like from a student perspective, understanding and relating to those quote unquote shit jobs that she was talking about, and you know, having internships, free labor, and really the grind to get where she's at now. I thought that was really relatable, and it's not just you start out as a student and then the next step is being really successful. There's a lot of steps in between. I thought that was really cool.
A lot of steps in between, and I actually blogged about this yesterday because I noticed that people who have made it rarely talk about all those steps in between, and that's how they get there. So I'm really glad that she brought it up in the middle here.
I just thought it was interesting. In her first film, she talked a lot about empathy and getting to know people deeply and not just broadly. And I think that also relates back to being an artist and creative person yourself, is that you have to understand yourself deeply before you can do anything broadly and understand other people deeply. So it was just interesting because a lot of people want to focus on trying to understand other people first when they have to understand that you have to understand yourself before you can ever accept somebody else's problems or see their world through their eyes. And so I just really connected with that because that is the main problem I think a lot of creative people especially have, because it's so hard for us to tackle ourselves first before we can do other people.
Tackling ourselves, excellent. That reminds me of that wrestling image she had in the film, right? Okay, one more comment, question right there, pass it over.
It's interesting because as I saw the 10 stages of creativity, I was also thinking about what Professor Cheney mentioned, that film is a collaborative area. You're working with so many people from many different backgrounds and that they have different skills than you do, but you're all working towards one thing and one goal. And so I think it's also very important what she said, that sure, it's important to work as a group, because if not, you're not going to achieve, or you're not going to get where you want to get, but it's also important to take a moment for yourself and know where you are, what you want, and where you want to get. So that I think knowing what you want, it's also gonna be extremely important for that feedback part. When your sound designer tells you, I think you should do this differently, but I really love what you did here. You know where you wanna get, so you either understand their point of view and reach towards like that area where you both want to get, and I just think it's very important to know what you want and be able to communicate and understand what your team wants to achieve that final goal that everyone wants. I think it's interesting.
Excellent, thank you. All right, well, Tiffany is going to be our opening keynote at HOWDesignLive in Atlanta, May 19th through 23rd, and I know there are opportunities for students, so I hope to see some of you there. I want to thank the AV team here at SCAD and the graphic design department, Jason and Terry and Fish and Dean Rojas and everyone who's made this possible, the team at HOWDesignLive, Gary and Amanda and Amy and all of those people, and thank you all for joining us this morning. I think it was a really interesting discussion also. I think that's very helpful. So I'm Ilise Benun, and I hope to see you soon. Thank you. Oh, in 2 weeks. Sorry.
Okay,
I forgot to promote
real
that.
quick, in 2 weeks, Lana Rigsby right here. We're back to our 5 o'clock schedule, February 25th. 2 weeks after that, March 10th, we'll have Kate Aronowitz. And remember, it's about $2,000 for a professional to go to this conference. The normal student rate is right at $500 for SCAD students. It's going to be right around it's going to be $250. So budget for that next year and go see Tiffany and some of these great speakers and Elise's team up in Atlanta in May. Thank you guys for coming.
Thank you.